It's not fun to feel this stuff, but what's the alternative? Plugging it up and ruining your life, right? Or just being another damaged person in society. I'm really honored to be amongst you, to have this discussion. It's creepy and surreal and beautiful and horrible.
I just wrote a feature about WNYC New York Public Radio and investigated the sexual harassment and also workplace abusement that had been going on for decades.
I'm one of the people who came forward and gave my name in Suki Kim's piece about New York Public Radio and the harassment there and what I experienced.
Louis C.K. asked if he could masturbate in front of me at work. So that's what brings me here with you ladies.
And I had an encounter with Donald Trump 30 plus years ago. And it was after the second debate that I decided to write a letter to the Times. And the Times responded and ended up writing a story about it.
I also had an encounter with Mr. Trump about 12 years ago when I was a receptionist in Trump Tower. And when I introduced myself to him, he kissed me multiple times. It was disgusting.
And I am here because of because I decided to share my experience with Harvey Weinstein. It was a while ago, but yeah, it's all been brought back.
I also came forward against Harvey Weinstein. He and I had an encounter in 2010, and my attorney and me are holding the company accountable. So I was one of the first to file a lawsuit against the company because they had known this had gone on for many years.
What's your level of fury?
I feel that for the longest time we weren't allowed to be furious.
Exactly.
And my God, shouldn't we all be enraged? And I don't mean just the women in this room, but shouldn't everybody be?
Yes, they should.
And I just feel so fortunate that so many of the women in this room helped to make it possible where we're allowed to be angry finally.
Just being angry is not enough. Being angry was okay for a little while, but it's not enough at this point. So it's like, what do we do from here? How do we address that?
I disagree with that. I think anger, righteous anger, propels. If you look at activism throughout the years, being passive and more gentle about things hasn't really propelled society forward, for women especially, not at all. For me, it propels like strength to keep fighting back. It's indignant, you know, and also every single woman's a MeToo almost.
I felt so many emotions over the past year with the election coming out, you know, whatever. But I finally felt anger when the MeToo movement came up and all these other men were being brought down. And I'm like, what happened to Trump? You know, why did this not impact him in that way?
For me, I can only speak on, from my experience, and with my experience being a comedian in the comedy world, what has infuriated me and what will continue to keep me, it literally can get me hot-faced and a sweat mustache within 2 seconds when I think about all of the people who 100% knew that this person was doing this the whole time, yet, all of the people in the comedy world who are they're so far up his ass that they can't just admit. I'm not saying, that people need to denounce this individual's talent or they need to denounce their friendship, because that has nothing to do with what he did. What they need to do, if there really is going to be change, is acknowledge what he did and say that it is wrong.
Yeah, people are like, are you afraid? Someone asked me the other day, which made me laugh. Are you afraid of what people think of you? Clearly, I'm shaking in my boots.
Go back to that thing you said about admiration and friendship, though.
Yeah.
And
I
to
would
echo
not
what
be
you said,
friends
it's
with
about-
somebody afterwards. I couldn't. There's no way.
I just
be
think
like
so
dumb.
much of this is, in Louis C.K.'s admission / apology, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
He uses the word admire repeatedly. These women admired me.
I know,
And the other people in the field
picked up on
admired
that.
me.
Oh my God,
I know all
yeah.
these people who admired me, and it's not about admiration. It's
Gaslighting.
It's also about not unfair employment practices.
Yeah.
But
You
don't you
are one
think-
of the top dogs in this particular field. You have power to make or break people's careers.
But I mean, this is so systematic. It's in, in the case of New York Public Radio, where I was sent all this endless inappropriate emails from John Hockenberry, who's an icon in public radio. And when that continued for over a year, and I actually couldn't go on the show and I'm an author, they asked me to come on the show separately from all of this, and I couldn't go on the show since the host is sending me these emails, inappropriate ones, all the time for over a year. So then I did file a complaint, and I went in search of other women this must have happened. So when I looked into it as an investigative journalist, I realized this had been going on for so long, but not only even on sexual level. Older women were now being harassed and being kicked out of the job. When they filed a complaint, older women were, who were actually all women of color, on this show that was actually mostly about racial diversity, hosted by a white man, and co-hosts were women of color who were, when they filed a complaint, they were abused, yelled at, and then they got taken off the show. They got fired from the show. So the way it was happening was so systematic. Younger women were getting sexually harassed, and older women were harassed so they couldn't do the job. So when you think about the meaning of sexual harassment, it's really that you cannot do your job because you're a woman.
My beef is really with all the people that are complicit. All around.
I think that's actually,
That's who
feels.
I have.
That is-
That's my the people that I find most reprehensible.
Agreed.
Absolutely. They stay silent, but also it's too bad that we stay silent. I stayed silent for a long time because I didn't feel that there was a safe environment for
There
me
wasn't.
to be able to
But you were right.
voice this. Exactly, and that's also what's just so sad and absolutely unacceptable about this whole.
It is the first time in history women are being believed,
Yeah,
even though we
but
get
yeah.
slagged. And
To some degree, we are fighting against an acculturation that's gone on for eons.
Yes.
That women,
we are.
on the whole, should be supportive, nurturing, compliant.
I also think it's not just a matter of what people teach us, but
Oh, of course not.
but also what we teach men, what we believe. But people have asked me before, why didn't you speak up earlier? And why did it take you over a year and a half after you left the company to say anything about what was being done there? And part of it is I saw the people who spoke up evaporated. That's number one. I couldn't lose my job. And number two, so much of how we're taught to live in this world as women is to keep the peace, to smile, to try and giggle it off, to try and say, oh, that's fine, when it doesn't feel fine.
Or to say, I have a boyfriend. So, clearly you'll respect that more than if there's a guy involved, you'll respect that instead of just me.
But
Yeah.
it's a matter of how do you preserve your own job? How do you preserve your own space there? But how do you preserve your physical safety as a woman? And a lot of that is we have to be nice.
Yeah.
And it's tough being called a liar.
It is. Yeah.
It is.
And
It's the worst.
that's
Yeah.
because how do you come back? No, you're lying. And then it's like it's schoolyard bully business. And it's very difficult to stand up and say, this is what happened, and have like an administration saying, I'm lying.
Well, for me, I just felt like it was just me. Like something I
course.
had done, of course, had caused him to do that. So I was the only one maybe that it had happened to, and I just took the blame internally. So it took other people coming out where I was like, oh my gosh, thank God, it wasn't just me. but how would I know otherwise? Like,
I
I
agree
love
with
that
you.
you said you started to seek other people out, like investigate, which would have been great, you know.
Because I think that what is unbelievable is because there's a fear which keeps people quiet. You know, Kristen went on the record for the story I wrote, and then other women also were part of it. But you know, it's exactly what you said, which is that the complicity that just goes on, where not only is it going on in the workplace, but for me to get this story out.
Because they're scared and
It's
they
about
lie.
silence.
It's silence, but that silence doesn't stay, again, behind the scenes. It goes into every thought, into every airwave. I did an interview with some guy on NPR last year. I can't remember who it was. And with his soft NPR voice, Rose, what if what you're saying makes men uncomfortable? Good. I've been uncomfortable
Welcome
my
to
whole
our
life.
world.
Welcome to our world.
Yeah.
Welcome to our world,
Yeah.
like, of discomfort. Because I think if women, and I know this, but this is band together at these places, they can push, but I think it's about, like, there has to be outside voices crisscrossing and fighting for each
Well,
other.
let me ask you something. Do you genuinely believe, because I get asked this all the time, I'll ask all of you, do you really think that change is happening?
Yes.
Okay, in what, do you guys?
Yes.
In what ways? I really
Just, well, if you want to take it to Hollywood, I was just there, and a woman told me that 2 women writers have gone into rooms. They said it's the first time they've ever gone into rooms to pitch ideas that anybody's listened to them.
That's amazing.
I mean, I think more women are getting into politics already, you know, and at this low level, maybe it's just the school council, but, you know, they want to change the language of the laws and redefine things. So, I mean, I think that's good. It's just the start, but I think it's changing.
We need more women in business in the Fortune 500 companies. And
Yes.
personally think that there's somebody out there that works for some major corporation who's waking up in a cold sweat wondering if somebody's going to accuse him. But even in really good companies, they're all men up there.
But I think maybe the one positive thing about this moment.
I can't wait.
I think there's a lot of positive.
Well, that's what I'm trying to
there is
find
one.
here
I was just
too.
thinking, and so I teach
Tell me.
journalism at Princeton University, and my students are about 19 sophomores, and they now they don't accept it. When I talk about this a lot with them. Like, it's
They
not
don't accept
acceptable. What I
Okay.
mean is, like, you know, if a man were to somehow like touch you in a way, somehow I think that the way it was acceptable is just, I think, watching this moment really unfold, which really has has to do with all the women here.
It's okay to call it out and just say it, you know.
I'm not sure I feel it in the comedy world.
Well, no,
That's
but
what
you're in it.
I know, I'm in it.
That town is just, I think, fairly hopeless.
Exactly. The first role that I did was through some people that I knew, and I met the casting, and they cast me, of course, as a porn star. And it was just one line, but I'm just saying I had no
It's so
intention of starting my career playing that kind of a part. So I think it's inherent with the kind of roles that are there for women.
Actually, more often than not, you don't get to say anything at all. If you just look at who gets to talk and whose voice matters, who gets the speaking roles in Hollywood or on public radio
Well,
or
only
on TV.
23% of speaking roles last year were women. So
Yeah.
I think you can imagine what those roles were like, and predominantly in horror films.
Yeah, we don't get to have a
Yes,
voice very often.
Right.
This is like a marathon, not a sprint.
This is,
right?
I've been
I mean,
playing
we-
a chess game for 20
Yeah.
years.
We can't expect to undo everything in society
All- I
that
know,
men
all
have
at
controlled,
once.
like all at once.
I know,
mean,
I get so, they're like, you need to do this and you need to do that.
Right.
I'm like, I'm running as fast as I can.
I mean, for me, I think it started with the Women's March, right? You know, and now it's the Me Too. And I'm hoping the next thing is the politics, like where women are just getting elected into office where they can start to,
Yes.
reframe things. So
Yeah,
we
how
have to
does
be,
that guy
we have
get
to
a
be
pass?
patient, but
Yeah.
it's hard.
I mean, it's,
That's
how do they get a
insane.
pass? Because the propaganda machine, Hollywood, media that supported Trump played him up. You know, all the news organizations. I released an open letter 2 months before the election that was just like, if I don't say something, I am complicit in this. And I know I will be derided. I know I'll be made fun of. But it was literally just begging every news organization, turn out the fucking lights. Turn out the lights. But this is the beast they built. This is the beast The Apprentice built. This is a beast Hollywood built. This is a mythology of this man.
They're complicit.
I mean, it's every single level, and I just want us to stop being the walking wounded and be able to live a free life. I've given this analogy before, but I saw these two dogs running in the forest not long ago, and I thought they were really weird. It's like, what is wrong with these dogs? I couldn't identify it, and then I figured out they had never been abused. And
they
we
were
don't
free
get to
and
they were
frolicking.
they were just living their damn lives.
Right.
If they created art, they would create art. If they wanted to run a Fortune 500 company, they'd run a Fortune 500 company. These dogs could do anything. These dogs were awesome. I want to be that dog.
Also, I mean, revolutions happen when you know, it's actually up to some few brave people, and then it tips.
Yes,
I think there
know.
is, right. So it's not, you know, the fact that I think enough women do speak up, and as toxic as the world of comedy is, or some other, you know, I think that it can tilt. So I think that, but it does depend on some really few people to really come.
They have to be brave.
Right,
and be
and moving
brave.
the guilt off of the victims to the person who, you know, was the predator or whatnot.
Right.
Because I had a tremendous amount of self-blame until those women came forward and were published.
Yeah.
And then I kind of, you know, felt like, wow, things are shifting. I can share this experience. So I think it's kind of about that shift to not,
Yeah.
that we
9
don't
months-
hold the guilt
9 months
anymore.
ago, when I started working with Jodie Cantor on the article, I knew enough about the industry that I needed to get people in competition with each other. The men at the top, I needed them to get in a pissing contest. And that was the only way this was going to get done, because I knew one of them would fold. And then that I needed them to put in enough woman power, manpower, and money into it in time that they couldn't go back. They couldn't fold this time, because I know New York Magazine's folded, but they tried, and I appreciate that.
Well, the Times
All of
did
them.
also.
They all did. They all did for
Had gotten
years.
stories long before
Yep.
before I got interviewed.
So
I would wonder what word. I would challenge the media to stop using the word alleged.
I will too.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Stop it.
I was in an
It's a thing
interview
of the
recently,
past,
and
I
I
feel.
said that. They asked me, how do you feel about these
word.
alleged? And I
Drives
said,
me crazy.
these are not alleged. I will not use the word alleged when I know what happened to me.
What's the other one that's really good?
Masturbate. That one's used a lot.
This woman in the article, the last article in the New York Times, was talking about how she gave, I hate saying his name, sometimes I can say it, sometimes I can't, my attacker. She was giving him special medicine for his penis so he could commit the rapes every time. Is that not out of the realm of alleged at this point? God damn it. I get mad sometimes. See? Furious.
Yeah.
But then it passes and we can
does.
joke about
It does.
masturbation again.
Then we can go back to masturbation.
Yes.
No, but I do want to say one thing too is I think that these people that do this, they victimize everyone. Like
everyone.
Everyone. Like, yes, it you know, I saw Sarah Silverman's statement, and that is what she felt that she was capable of doing, and I'm glad, first of all, that she even acknowledged it.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
glad she
true. I'll give her
acknowledged she acknowledged the people that it affected, and she acknowledged that it was not okay, and that
That's
we
good.
need to be better. And I thought all of that was great. But it does. There are friends that are put in really horrible positions that know those people, and then friends and
Yeah,
friends.
well,
and
sometimes life is hard. Do the right thing.
Exactly,
deal.
but what my point is that I feel like they need to also be given the tools to go like, okay, so now this is the place you've been put in because of the actions of this
Right.
repugnant, filthy cow.
Right. So they're in a
So now
movie
you're
they
in
don't want to be in.
That's
either.
it. You're in a movie that you don't want to be in now. So here's what you need to work on.
Right.
Here's some tools that you need in order to say, how do we handle that? And I think in the scheme of things, and all of the women who have commented and remained completely silent about Louis C.K., at least that was a good starting template to like, here's how I'm
was.
going to deal with someone who has been my friend for 20 some years, who's done
Right.
something repugnant.
And then it's not just the men who are the perpetrators, it's
Yeah.
the other people in the world who, of course, I shouldn't do this, but once in a while I'll look at the comments since Suki's story broke from trolls who are like, well, that doesn't sound that bad. Why are you complaining about that? It's not like he gang raped you.
They perpetuate all of it by saying, oh, it wasn't that bad, or you like it wasn't this, it wasn't that. The level, you don't get to say the levels of what trauma is, troll. You don't get to do that, and you don't get to tell me about my life. I love, like, you took a settlement. I'm like, you know why I took a settlement? So I could go to therapy and put myself back together. It didn't work. You know why I took a settlement? Because I wanted and hoped and dreamed. I was trying to buy a billboard that said Harvey Weinstein is a rapist, and I couldn't because they wouldn't let me. So I donated it to rape charity, but you don't know how. You took a settlement. Do you know how much money, if you want to look at it just from the monetary sense, the amount of money I lost by being blacklisted? My career was on a completely different trajectory, as so many of us were. And we got derailed and hijacked. And the amount, like Matt Lauer, look at Ann the amount of women that like have been just left by the wayside culturally, y'all should be mad because you've lost a lot of art. You've lost a lot of business. You've lost a lot of thought. You're losing 51% of the equation, really. And I think if we can look at society now, you could just tell men, yeah, you've done a real good job. Maybe try sitting down.
I recently was asked, what are you guys getting from this? They were asked, what are we getting from
Other women to stop being raped and killed?
What are we getting
It's a
from
healing
this? It's
process for me.
Yeah, and people are like, well, people saying, oh, what did you get paid? What did you get paid to do this? And did you get money from him or what? It's like one of the other girls this happened to said, like, we got a face full of red pubes and not even a gift card to Starbucks. Like, this is a horrible, sorry for the imagery, but I'm just saying, like, what a horrible thing to say. Like, what are you getting? What are you getting from it? I'm getting death threats, and I'm getting ripped apart, and getting all this free hate every single day, and told that I'm a loser and I'm this and that by telling the truth that he's actually admitted to. Well, what do you think?
So I mean, I don't understand why the cops aren't knocking on his door. If he admitted, I don't understand that. I mean, I understand it, but I where the equation is, I've just not seen one like DA's office step up and
they'll probably be working security at his next stand-up special.
You're probably right.
Why won't they go after these guys? I really don't understand it.
Because it's bros before hoes. Yep. That old line, right?
Also, I think that I was asked on air to talk about it, and then on one show, which is Takeaway, WNYC, I was basically read Hockenberry's statement. So during my airtime, they were reading his words, which, if I'm being asked on, shouldn't I have time to talk about this? And then another show, Brian Nair, out of 15 minutes live, Brian Nair spoke for 9 minutes, narrating his version of the story. So I think that this is just endemic, right?
Minutes?
Yeah. So I think that unless you interrupt, then you become the person who's interrupting the host, which I did. Right? But what I mean is the setup is done in a way. It's always a male host asking a woman and their perspective, and they tell their version, and
with
then
their
leave
soft
you a little
NPR
time.
voice.
Yes, I think this is just it's everywhere. It's done everywhere where it robs the women of your voice.
We've been silenced for millennia. It's time to not be silent anymore.
And about the media, saying
words really
the cases of, well, this isn't that bad. This is worse. Right. This is a 2. It's a 5. It's a 7. It's a 10.
But none of it is acceptable.
None of it is acceptable. If you don't, we are sovereign beings. Mm-hmm. We get to exist like those dogs in the forest.
I had the experience of being interviewed with Anderson Cooper. He was very nice to me, and I thought I was very nice to him, and I thought it went well. Prior to their airing that piece, he had a on-camera, live interview with a woman who is the campaign manager for Roy Moore.
God.
And he didn't let her finish a sentence. He talked over her. He argued with her. And I'm thinking, okay, I don't agree with that woman, and I don't want to hear her views, but I can always turn the TV off. But I'm not so sure that I'm happy with his treating her that way, because I know of the way he treated me. So I'm of 2 minds now to write Anderson Cooper.
Yeah, but she wasn't letting him finish at all.
He wasn't letting her finish. He was in control of that interview.
I completely disagree with that. I think he was on point. I love him so much.
Well, as I said, I don't agree with that
I love
woman, and I want him to expose her as being what she is. But the fact remains, the way he was conducting that interview was made it was a typical male.
Oh, nah.
I agree with what you say in terms of men generally doing that. It's a tricky position. I think finally the media, somebody has to push back and not let these people just air their views uninterrupted, because it's a lie and they're gaslighting everybody.
I think we have to be careful too about saying statements, blanket statements about, typical male. I understand that, believe me, I get it, but I don't think that helps in certain ways by saying that's the typical male behavior, because
But it is.
It is.
Well, it
needs to be called on what it is, so they can. I would like them to become atypical males. How about that?
How you like to
They could become. I would like typical to mean something good.
Okay.
But not yet. They have to address their shitty behavior.
Right, but
first.
if someone is being assertive, or how I viewed he was being, right, and to call him he was being atypical male, well, that's all very subjective, and I think it has a negative connotation where it's not necessarily what he felt in that moment. I watched that whole thing a few times because I was blown. If you haven't seen it, you have to see it. This woman.
I know.
Wow. And, I just felt like that was a journalist going, you're going to answer my questions. You don't want to, you're going to do it. I just don't feel like we have to just
Right.
all I'm saying is just be careful with generalizing a certain gender as one big chunk, because
Well, to me, if there's a hashtag Me Too, there's got to be a hashtag I did it.
I just want to do what I'm good at, and do live my life. I think
Sovereign
that's
beings,
right. Like
just
let women just do
live.
their work and do what they're talented and pursue, like their heart.
Right.
And live, right?
Wear sweats and
look,
eat
we
pizza.
are
all
all
I've ever
here.
wanted
We're
is
all
just to
here,
play,
right?
like,
While we're
substantial
here.
roles.
Yeah.
So I must have to create them myself, I think, at
You
this
do.
point.
I had to stop acting because I did stop acting because I was like, why am I leaving my body and my mind to have a two-dimensional being take over from this man's idea of what I can be? I mean, it's pretty meta that for 17 years, everything that came out of my mouth was something largely a man wrote for me to say. Anyway, I'm really proud of all of us, because I know it's not easy. I know it's really, really triggering, and I know we have an avalanche of nastiness. Cry when you need to, and laugh when you get to, and
And support
I believe in us. We can do this. We can do this. Right on.